And once again, we are back here in Living in the 21st Century. Joining me today is Adrienne K. Realford, MED, BA, with over 20 years in the social services field. Currently, she is a family service specialist with the Northeast Region Department of Children's and Families, Circuit 4. She serves as the right hand to the program administrator. She is a certified child protective investigator in the state of Florida. She was selected as part of the Critical Injury and Death Unit for the Florida Department of Children and Families. She resides in Jacksonville, Florida, sorry. Then we have Mr. Steve Jones, Executive Officer of the School Improvement in Bibb County School District located in Macon, Georgia. Mr. Jones is the owner of Push in Leadership, LLC. His company focuses on building the capacity and removing barriers for educational leaders in the area of school improvement. We also have Takara Figueroa. She is a certified family nurse practitioner from Richmond, Virginia. She works with COVID-19 patients. Then Pastor Advery Hudson, 11-year teacher at Clayton County Public Schools, as well as a parent community liaison in Atlanta, Georgia. He's also the lead pastor of Christ Deliverance Temple, the Life Center in Columbus, Georgia. He is sought after conference speaker, revivalist, and motivational orator. He has positively reinforced belief that our full potential is only truly realized when we live a life of service for others. And finally is Dr. Cheryl Clayton-Molina, founder of Turnaround Vision, LLC, a retiree from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, certified life coach and motivational speaker, and a GED instructor in Augusta, Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining me today here on Living in the 21st Century. And my first question goes out to Adrienne Realford. Now, Adrienne, you have a lot going for you in the state of Florida. My question to you, in a time where there's so much virus going on and schools are going through some of the most rigid times they can possibly think about, parents on one side, the school on the other, the kids in the middle, could you explain what's really going on there in Florida, please?
Okay, well, greetings from the Sunshine State. I am in Duval County. Our county, but we're part of the Northeast region, which covers 7 counties in Florida. Those counties are Duval County, Nassau County, Baker County, Clay County, St. Johns County, Putnam County, and Flagler County. But Duval is one of the major ones that I serve. What I see is increase in domestic violence cases, substance abuse cases, and the out-of-home placement. So when I look back for the total year of 2020, Duval County, the Northeast region, had a total of 13,367 cases, of which 8,664 belong to Duval County. It was a lot of disruption. When you picture it, you have a family, mom, dad, and we'll just say 2 children or maybe 3. Mom goes to work, dad goes to work, children go to school. So in that period, the reality is some people look at this as a respite period. This is a time where I get a break from mommy, can I, and honey, can you do this and can you do that? Now, couple that with the pandemic, and then now we're home and we're having to quarantine together. So that adjustment period became chaotic. And at that point, now what you don't know is the home was already volatile. It was an already hostile situation and a violent situation. So now we're having the survivors of DV having to quarantine with their abuser. And so now everything is out of order. Then nobody's working, nobody have money for food, nobody have money to pay the rent, the utilities, or anything of that nature. So tempers flare. In fact, we did see an increase in domestic violence cases. On an average, the Department of Children and Families would refer at least 30 referrals monthly to our Hubbard House subsidiary. And now we're up to 96 per month. So that gives you a total of an additional 36 with 60%, if you want to look at it percentage wise, of increase of referrals due to domestic violence. So with everything else that's going on, then you want to look at an uptick. If I can share my screen to show you here. When you look at the domestic violence cases, when the pandemic first hit March of 2020, Duval County is in the blue. The Northeast region is in the orange. You see, it was 159 domestic violence cases in the month of March. But as the pandemic progressed, by the time August, September, you see a rise from 159 to 217 cases. In September and October, 221. November, we're up to 230. December, we had a decrease because everybody is in love in December. It's Christmas time, it's the holidays, everybody's getting along. But then coming to January, we're back up. Now, I want to point out, if you look, as the vaccination begins to happen and people are basically, quote, outside again, you see where there was a decline in those cases, even up to July 2021. So there was a significant increase, especially, and that was the period and when people were starting to come into the knowledge of being vaccinated. So here, just wanted to show a little proof of how the cases went, the uptick or the splurge of cases that the department began to see with domestic violence cases. Right. And then there was another area as far as substance misuse. You got this idle time, people are smoking marijuana, but now the opioid crisis is taking over. And now they're experimenting with synthetic drugs, such as Molly, such as Flocka, such as K2 Spice. They also have the bath salts. So it is my professional opinion that the COVID-19 played a part in this, because I want to take you back to a graph in just a minute, but many people suffer with depression. So that was their way of coping with the COVID-19, having to be quarantined, can't see their family, having to be inside, jobs closing down, they can't work, especially when you're into the food industry. A lot of restaurants did close in Jacksonville, especially on the beach, in the beach area, Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, those areas did close. So that put a lot of hardship on the family. So now you're dealing with self-medicating. And because I'm depressed, so we saw a rise in alcoholism. We saw a rise with the drugs. So I'm going to use my substance exposed newborn as my variable when I talk about substance misuse to show how it increased. As of March 2020, Duval County received 23 intakes alleging babies substance exposed newborn. That was March 2020. Now, 9 months to birth the baby. When you bring it up to December 2020, it increased from 23 intakes to 47, which is a significantly increase with that. Right.
I want to move on here quickly because the time is going along. I want to ask Mr. Steve Jones this question, and I will get back to you, Adrienne, on the governor and what he is doing pertaining to this matter in Florida, because I'm quite sure he's very, very knowledgeable of what's going on. But I just want to move on briefly to Mr. Steve Jones. Mr. Jones, tell me, you are one of the leaders in education in the area of back in Georgia. How is the virus presently affecting kids who may be homeschooled at this juncture, not being able to get back in that social setting that they once knew? What's going on there?
Good morning, everyone, and
good morning.
Thank you for having me on this morning.
Sure.
As you stated, the impact of COVID, I don't think, well, I know none of us ever would have thought that we would have seen anything like this happen during our lifetime. I can tell you it's had a tremendous impact. And, I know a lot of times we talk about the impact on students. However, we also have to talk about the impact on staff as well. Staff members, the adults are the primary teachers, are the primary resources for ensuring that students are getting what they need. And so when you think about the impact of students being at home, I kind of liken it to this. In education, the best educators are those that have rapport and those that have relationships with kids. And so when you think about building rapport and building relationships, think about your close family members and friends. You can text a friend every day. You can call a friend every day. You can write letters every day. But when they come face to face with you, at the moment that they come face to face, it's a totally different type of interaction. And it's the same thing with our students. Our students that are at home, and I want to say this first, every student is not struggling that's at home. Some students have adapted to it and they're able to move through it. But I have a strong concern for those that are at home. And when we talk about an equitable accessible education, some students don't have it's not an equitable education for all students when they are at home because they need that face-to-face interaction. It is totally different when in the presence of their teachers. For a lot of students, school is the safe place. And when I think about what Dr. Realford just talked about, you think about this. She talked about it from the adult issue. But when you think about the child who's carrying that load, that invisible backpack with the weight of the world on their shoulders, and they're sitting at home and they're having to cope with that while still listening to online instruction. And in some instances, if it's asynchronous, there's not a live teacher, it causes a tremendous decrease in acceleration for students academically. Students are not able to grasp the concepts the way they need. And in education, a lot of times we talk about giving students things in suitable steps, to challenge them in a suitable step, and then to be able to differentiate learning for them. It is very, very difficult. Now, we're working on that right now. And I think that educators across the world are going to get it together. But the big deal for those kids sitting at home is their social and emotional well-being. And I think that's going to have a long-term impact on students. So as I guess to kind of summarize all of that, I think it's important that students are in school in the presence of teachers, that we do what we need to do to get those students where they need to be. Right now, so many students are struggling. So many students are suffering.
Great. And definitely want to hold you on that one because I'm going to get back to you with that, considering the uptick in the virus and having kids back at school, in some cases where they are not taking the necessary safety precaution simply because their parents doesn't want them to wear masks. But I want to move on briefly to Takara Figueroa. Takara, you are a certified nurse practitioner in Virginia, and you work with COVID patients. I want you to explain some of the realities to those who may think that the virus is just nothing more but a conspiracy theory, and it is not what it really is. Could you briefly explain some of the realities to that?
Absolutely. Good morning. Thank you for having me today.
Sure.
COVID-19 is not your common cold, although the coronaviruses have been around for many years. And in years past, they have caused common cold-like symptoms. However, the mutated form, COVID-19 and the new Delta variant, cause much more serious illnesses. So you will get flu-like symptoms, the aches, the fever, the chills, things of that nature. But how the coronavirus is designed is it attacks the lungs and it causes inflammation in your lungs. And that impedes the lungs' ability to allow you to breathe out CO2 and breathe in oxygen. That causes a whole realm of issues, shortness of breath, pneumonia, life-threatening upper respiratory diseases. So it is not your common cold. It's not a hoax. It's not, it's just a worser form of the flu, so to speak. It's very, very serious, and it can have very detrimental effects.
Okay. And as a nurse, I believe you would have actually witnessed people dying in your presence.
Yes. I've worked in the ICU, I've worked in the emergency room, and currently I'm working at a family practice. And I have seen individuals, 16, on ventilators, struggling for their life, struggling to breathe because they contracted the disease. And unfortunately, our youth, they don't really understand the ramifications of staying safe. They have this Superman ideology to where they feel like nothing can stop me, nothing can harm me, or even it won't happen to me. But it can happen to you. It very well can.
And it appears to be a very horrible way to die with this separation.
Absolutely. Imagine laying in a bed and a pillow is over your face and you're trying to breathe.
Okay.
That is the realization of what COVID could be for you.
Great. Well, I'm going to get back on the second half to you and that, because there are a lot of people, not only here in the US, but in the Caribbean region also, who think that this virus is just something not to take serious. And in the result of that, they are not taking vaccines. And my next question goes out to Pastor Advery Hudson, who is also a teacher at Clayton County Public Schools. Pastor, tell me something. In your presence right now, how do you see families getting along and managing through this virus? Those kids who probably stuck at home, the parents who also may be at home or working from home or having to go out, not knowing if they're bringing the virus back, where the kids can catch it. What are the struggles to what you're witnessing right now?
Good morning, everybody. It's a difficult struggle. In fact, at this particular junction, I work as a parent liaison at Clayton County Public Schools. So my primary job is to work with parents. And so that, and combined in conjunction with what I do on a ministerial level, this pandemic has been horrific for families. The separation is difficult, as everyone has stated. In addition, I had a parent who called me the other day because she wanted the school to know that her child was in the children's hospital, and that she wanted to keep that connection to let the teachers know that her child was not just missing school, but that she was in fact sick. It is a difficult time for us as a whole, and I think what it is finding a coping mechanism. Many families don't have the closeness that we used to have. I will say that social media and these different entities have separated us, as well as, though it was a form that it should have connected us, there's so much separation and division. And so I think the virus has added to that, and an astronomical amount added to that weight. So what we have to do is we have to find a connection, a link. I can agree with Mr. Jones about wanting students to be in the work environment, but we have to find a healthy medium so that we are not spreading this virus, as well as we're not sending it home. It's not just the parents that worry about that. I worry about that myself. I have a 10-month-old son. My wife works as a phlebotomist in the hospital. And so those are things that, we battle every day. Me working in a school environment and she working in a hospital setting and bringing it home to our 10-month-old son. So I think that's a conundrum for families as a whole. And so that is something that we're seeing across the board. Like I said, not only in my church congregation, there are different steps that we do, and even different levels of protection that I can do at the church. that I can't necessarily do at school. And so those are the things that we battle with as a whole. But what we do is we try to find a medium or try to find a coping mechanism as a community and reconnect families and reconnect friends and reconnect the sense of hope. That's what more than anything, we want to push hope or even when it comes down to vaccinations. A lot of people, on a spiritual level are on the fence about vaccination. I have to personally say that I see the vaccination as a sense of hope. And so that's what we want to push hope today.
Briefly, for those who are struggling with these spiritual beliefs, there are those who believe that if they are a Christian, that this virus will not have an impact on their bodies, and they can very well go to church. And in some cases, some of them go to church unprotected. How do you nourish or divert the attention of those who strongly believe because they are a Christian, they cannot be hurt in a virus that doesn't discriminate among anyone?
But the first thing I tell people is that the scripture says he would not have us to be ignorant. Mm-hmm. Now, and I'm saying this, that faith is not a blanket statement that, we are going to be protected. In fact, the Bible says that the weapon formed against us would not prosper, but it did not say that the weapon wouldn't be formed.
Right. Excellent. Dr. Molino, I'm here at I know you've witnessed a lot in your life, and there are those you would mentor and give structure to this style of living. We're living in a very confused world today, politically, socially, culturally, and it is a time where people need to understand that this virus is real, and it only becomes real to those who sometimes, when they find themselves in the hospital bed, crying for their life. What word of comfort would you want to say to the people that, look, hey, this thing is real. We need to face facts. We need to be vaccinated. How would you go about dealing with a matter like that?
Well, first thing, COVID-19 has become a part of our everyday vocabulary. Mm-hmm. Everywhere you go, it doesn't matter what state you go to, it doesn't matter what country you go to, COVID-19 is present. And it has caused a lot of changes in our lives. Just last year, you remember when COVID first came about, what did it do? It had us rushing to the store, buying masks, buying Lysol. COVID has changed America. This is worldwide. It's just not local, it's worldwide. Are we going back to normal? Is there any such thing as being normal again? I believe that we're going to have to find a way to cope with it. COVID has caused anxiety, anger, frustration. Even I had a client to tell me just last month, Dr. Molina, I feel numb. I feel like this just cannot be real, but it's real. And we have to find a way to cope with it. When COVID first came about, every day in and day out, hours at a time, I would spend my time looking at the news, COVID. But it get to the point where you have to relieve yourself of that. You have to back away from the television, back away from social media, and just listen to it. Maybe we have to stay informed as to what's going on, but then maybe just narrow it down to 2 times a day instead of constantly listening at COVID. You have to take a break because it can become upsetting. How do we cope with it? Again, back away from the media a little bit, because there's so many stories out there, so many misformed information. A lot of it is not true. A lot of it is true. But and family and friends, we got to a point last year, and I lost my father to COVID, and we was not able to go to the hospital to see him, and he died from it. And that was hurting.
Yes.
But we have to learn how to go from grieving to healing. And that was one of the questions I had for Mr. Hudson. How did we go from grieving to healing? Because I was reading just yesterday that a lot of people since COVID has become Christians. They're trying to find a way out, and they're looking for an answer. We need a way out.
That's true. Well, we're going to start. We will return to the second half of this show when we return. And Adrienne, I would love to ask you a next question pertaining to domestic violence. So please hold on for the next half, and we'll be connecting pretty shortly.